Hello and welcome to Talking WoW, the podcast where we talk about World of Warcraft, believe it or not. My name is Tom and beside me is my co-host Marty. Hey Marty.
Hello, insert stupid joke right here.
Wonderful, so funny. We are here today because BlizzCon 2023 announced the next World of Warcraft expansions. I can't believe I'm saying that, but yes, we have been treated to some incredible news at BlizzCon 2023 with the announcement of the World Soul Saga storyline. Wow, try and say that after a few Ironforge ales. And this is broken down to 3 expansions: The War Within, Midnight, and The Last Titan. Marty, were you expecting 3 expansion announcements from BlizzCon?
I have to admit that I'm a little bit disappointed because I was expecting 5.
You're just greedy.
But I guess
so greedy.
I guess 3 will do.
Absolutely mind blown as Chris Matson was on the stage. Welcome back, Chris. Great to have you. And really teasing us all into the Blizzard world and what was coming next. And I don't think anyone really saw 3 expansions coming. We saw all these leaks with regards to the continent in the West, or, you know, there was just so many leaks and it was just like, none of them were true. None of them were true. They kept this under wraps really well. So I think that is a great sign that we were able to be surprised for once on BlizzCon day. And I mean, let's get into it, Marty. You've got your wish. You've got an expansion, 3 expansions with an intertwining story.
I did sort of get my wish, yeah, where I think we have spoken a lot about, if you follow us, that one of the biggest wish that I have is that they're not just, here is a new enemy and you'll kill him towards the end of the expansion and then we move on to something completely different. It feels like they're actually doing something with it, building something up over a longer period of time. They're telling a story over 3 expansions at least, and that's amazing. I'm very much looking forward to how this whole thing is going to play out and see more about everything.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it remains to be seen whether the World Soul Saga storyline is 3 expansions within it that maybe aren't as big as expansions we are used to. We don't know, like, how they're going to roll these out and when they're going to roll these out. We know the War Within will be out in 2024, but what follows that we don't know. But I think just from taking it from the information point that we've been given, very, very exciting and very promising that they may finally be, I mean, not finally, but they are taking more of a focus on the narrative and then how that connects within future expansions. Because, like you say, we've had previous expansions where you deal with the big bad and then you just move on. You have a sword sticking out of your planet and you just forget about it. It's things like this that probably should be taken care of and actually resolved in a way that feels satisfying to move on to new things without having a bunch of old stuff sitting there, which, you've got a bunch of question marks and you never get that satisfying feeling of like, oh, that story tied up nicely and it's threaded into another story here that continues on. And I think that's probably what we're getting with Dragonflight, the way that has all built up and will resolve itself. We'll get that thread now, which will lead into the World Soul Saga. I think we both had predictions, didn't we, about the next expansion was probably going to be Void related?
I think the Void is one of those things where we know a little bit about it, but it's never really been fully explored. And every time we have dealt with Void, aka Old Gods, we'll straight up, they're usually always tacked on towards the end of an expansion, and then we're killing them off, and then we don't really look more into it. And it feels like we're most definitely getting way more Void stuff. And I mean, the second expansion is called Midnight. It has the logo's already out, and it's very voidy in how it looks like. So, I'm excited for the War Within, but I'm looking forward to Midnight.
Yeah, Midnight. I mean, the tagline for that is, returning to Quel'Thalas, make a stand with the forces of the light to banish the shadow of the void from Azeroth. So it's going to be really interesting to see like how these all connect, because we're already being told what's happened, and we're actually speaking to our friend Mike, who's been on the show before, and he actually said this is actually quite a good thing for us to see maybe a bigger picture of where we're going, but we don't have the journey yet, or of how that all fits together. And it's actually, it leaves probably us making less speculation about where we're heading and gives us a bit more concrete of the narrative.
It gives us a framework to work within, sort of. So, you know, when we do figure out cool ideas and post them on the internet, maybe Blizzard will read them and be like, oh, that's a good idea, we'll implement that, right? That's how it works.
Oh, that's definitely how it works. Yeah, they've definitely been reading our tweets for sure. And to round up this, I guess, is it going to be like a trilogy? Is this Star Wars?
I mean, that name, The Last Titan, you know, feel like I've heard that somewhere before.
I mean, yeah, maybe. And we're going to be returning to the greatest raid in World of Warcraft. Little asterisk beside that, because that's my opinion.
Karazhan. Oh.
The Return of the Titans to Ulduar, Marty, not Karazhan, in Northrend. So already just these little teasers get you very excited, because whenever somebody says Northrend or, you know, the Void,
bring a coat.
Or Nerubians, Marty, Nerubians, because in the War Within, we're going to be dealing with Nerubians who we got very close to in Wrath of the Lich King, didn't we?
I mean, close, we killed a lot of them.
They'll remember that.
But it's nice to see us return to that, because I think originally the two dungeons in Wrath of the Lich King, the Nerubian dungeons, were supposed to actually be a full zone instead, with like a city underground, and it's nice to see that, oh, we didn't manage to do it that time, but we're getting around to do it now.
Yeah, and this is going to be set on the new continent of Khazalgar, which obviously very dwarven in nature there, and we saw the like images of like where the new like player city is going to be, and very like reminiscent of like Ironforge, of how it's set in the mountains, but it's almost set in this lush forest, and it's like, oh, but this is underground, isn't it?
It is. To me, it felt like every zone is like deeper underground. So it feels like every time we go to another zone, we go deeper and deeper and deeper, and I really liked that idea and aspect of it. I mean, obviously, I want to see, you know, experience it and see it, like more information, more maps, stuff like that. But that's how it felt to me, and yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, and I guess one of the concerns I had when they announced 3 expansions was, are they really going to be full expansions that we're used to in World of Warcraft? Because we're used to an expansion being pretty chunky and having a lot to it, and they're already coming out and saying, like, you know, there's going to be 8 dungeons, a raid boss. And, you know, that's sort of like, okay, well, that's pretty standard, isn't it? That's like what we would expect. And we're getting some new systems with this expansion as well. And I guess we should probably start with the most exciting announcement with regards to this expansion.
So the transmog thing?
Okay, we'll agree to disagree. The transmog thing, Marty, go ahead.
I mean, it is it's something we've talked about. I don't know if we talked about it on an episode on the podcast, but we at least have talked about it when we've been live streaming, that how annoying is it that you're playing on a cloth character, and then all the cool male transmog drops for you, and you're just like, yeah, I can just render this, and I need to go back on a hunter or a shaman or evoker to try and you know, get these transmogs. And why is it not just unlocked, so when you get it, you get it? Yeah, apparently it's going to be a thing.
It's going to be a thing, and oh my goodness, I'm going to save so much money in postage fees. The amount of times I get like a BOE, and I'm like mailing it to the actual character that can use it, just absolutely ridiculous. I hope I get a rebate for that, Blizzard, by the way. But yeah, this is just something very, very simple, by the way. I mean, simple in the fact that it's not, I wouldn't call it a huge headlining feature.
No.
But it's just something that you've got the transmog system in there. Many, many people love the transmog system, and collecting items make that a bit easier for them, and making that ult friendly, suddenly it doesn't matter what class you're running on, you're going to be adding to your collection at all times, and that's just a good feeling.
Absolutely.
And I guess to segue on the fact of account-wide friendly stuff, we're getting a feature called War Bands, Marty, which, if you listen to our BlizzCon, what we wanted for BlizzCon episode, you will very much know that we wanted account-wide reputation, and it's here, Marty. It is going to be included in War Bands, which, from what we're seeing, it's going to be account-wide reputation from the War Within to start with. There's no talk of what will be for older factions, but maybe that is something that will come later.
Yeah, I mean, they said that they don't really know what they're going to do with previous yet, because apparently it's a little bit more difficult than just toggling a switch and be like, oh, now it's account-wide. So they're still trying to figure out how they want to handle that, but at least from the War Within and going forward, the new reps will be account-wide. So that's great news. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I had a little brief Twitter exchange with somebody very awesome who I know listens to the show about, they were saying like, yeah, it's not simple because you've got complications with some of those classic reps as well, and it's not just a simple thing. Whereas I think in Dragonflight, they are very much simplifying the whole renowned thing, and reputation isn't, I would say, as complicated now as it was, in the back of the Burning Crusade, or even classic. So it's going to be very nice to be able to have that. It's going to be very nice to have that as something, making the game more ult friendly, which it seems to be a bit of a theme. It started with Dragonflight, seems to be carrying on into the War Within. Hopefully it gets expanded upon in Midnight and the Last Titan as well. People very, very well receptive to that news. You only have to listen to the opening ceremony to get a gauge on what the reactions of people, and when account-wide stuff was announced, biggest cheer of the night. Well, maybe Chris Mattson, but people want it easier to be able to play multiple characters, and I think we're shifting towards more of, it's your account, you play the characters you want, but you're progressing on your account, and that is the dream. Like, I'm looking at somebody right now, Marty, who has, not gonna lie, a number of characters. I don't even know the number because I can't count that high.
And also, in my contract it says that I have to mention this once per episode almost. So one thing that we're getting that we have been, loving over in Star Wars: The Old Republic is that we're actually going to get like a shared stash as well. Or shared bank features, which is something that, why do we have to mail stuff to my own characters? Why isn't that just a shared stash? Even Diablo has a shared stash between all characters. So
it's the post office, Marty. They are making an absolute fortune. Well, it's no longer happening, post office. That's it. You're getting cut off. Your revenue's going down.
So yeah, so it's basically, and they did say that, without going into detail, that it's this thing called War Bands. It's not like it's actually is a specific warband, it's just what they're calling this whole area of things. So it's kind of sounded to me like there's more things under that banner that they haven't actually talked about yet. So I don't know what that could be. I don't know if you have any ideas, perhaps?
Yeah, we're also going to be getting account-wide currency within warbands as well, which I think is, something, again, we've talked about where, for example, when you're doing like the time walking and you're like, oh, this character has all this currency and then this character has all this currency. It's like, that would just be nice if it was all one. Like how the tenders work, how, there are currencies there, that technology, maybe that was a testing ground for account-wide currency, but again, just making players' lives easier, and also with the amount of specializations, with the amount of classes that we have, giving people the options to pick up and play what they want when they're feeling like it, without feeling punished, without feeling like, oh, I've put all this time into this character, so now I want to play this other character, but I don't feel like I can. And to be honest, these changes, making it more accessible, making actually things easier to obtain, I don't think that's a detriment. I don't think that's going to make people say, I'm going to spend less time in this game. Or maybe, it respects their time a bit more. But probably you will find people will play the game more when this stuff is implemented, because the restrictions go and actually people want to spend more time on different characters and end up spending more time in the game. Believe it or not, that's what I think would happen.
I mean, I think you're right. I can definitely think back and be like, at the start of an expansion, I played this character. Towards the end of an expansion, I wanted to play a different character, but it was just, so difficult or annoying to get started on new characters. So you sort of just didn't feel like actually, doing it. And then I ended up doing something else, other games, other things. So I think you are right. I think this is potentially, ruining my life, because I will be playing more World of Warcraft.
It's massive. Like, honestly, I think it is massive, and there's a reason why so many people have been asking for it, because you just see how many alts people are playing. Even, in Dragonflight, it has encouraged people to level more classes. Myself, as somebody who only ever really focused on one character, now has at least one character of every armor type as well. And it's just, I think that is a game changer. I don't like to say hot takes, but that is a game changer in World of Warcraft when it comes to how we will approach the game in the future. And something else that may change how you play the game is the fact that we're getting something called delves. And this is going to be an outdoor world experience, which I'm getting scenario vibes here from Mists of Pandaria, and this is going to be a scalable group event that you can do actually solo or up to 5 players, and it's going to be role agnostic as well. So you're going to be able to basically take the specialization that you want there and potentially make it work. You didn't seem too excited about delves, Marty.
I mean, I think it's just not my, the content that is for me. I will jump into it and do it, but I don't think this is necessarily, my content. But no, I think it sounds all right on paper. I want to see it, because it sounds like, as you said, it sounds like scenarios, but it's also combined with Torghast, combined with the sort of, decks, sorry, not delves, but decks that we had in 10.1.5.
Decks, sorry, I had to double take what he said there.
With a G.
Oh, thanks for confirming.
And so it's something that could be cool. What I do think is cool, though, is that this will also, when you do these delves and also other world content like world bosses and a few other things, I believe, it will actually add to your vault as well. So it's a new way to actually gain gear, and I think this again will be awesome for alting. I would say, at least again on paper, we need to see how it actually works out, but.
Also just a great way for somebody that perhaps is more casual, likes to explore the world, focus more on that. They'll actually be doing those things, and suddenly they'll be like, oh, well, I got some good gear from this. And then, you may get people that gear up like that. And, we've had it with World Quest as well, where you're able to gear up, and there's also been a lot of catch-up mechanics as well. But I think getting people to a point where they're then potentially ready to make that step up into raiding or Mythic Plus, for example, giving them just another route to get there. I think we're at a point in World of Warcraft's time where that is totally fine. It seems like they're just, opening the curtains here, letting all the light in, and no pun intended there, and just giving people all the options to get to all the places that they want to go, doing the content that they want to do with the characters that they want to at that time. And to me, that is the perfect scenario. I mean, nothing's ever perfect, but that is you look at, the game 10 years ago, you wouldn't think we'd be in the place we are today with how flexible things are suddenly becoming. And I think that's good. That is good to do that and not put up all these barriers and walls, especially at this stage of the game. Make the game more fun, make the game more accessible.
Yeah, and I feel like, because we've talked about that as well, that a lot of these small events that has been in the smaller patches sort of gives me that feeling you get towards the end of an expansion where Blizzard are opening everything up a little bit more, making it easy to do all these things. But they've in Dragonflight, they've kept doing that in each patch, and I think that is so great because that's when the game is the most fun. I find is towards the end where everything is open up and you can play alts and you have all these catch-up things, and I think Blizzard have really listened to us when we've been saying that's when the game is the most fun. Why can we not have this all the time? And they're basically living on that. And I mean, if they continue on down the road, which it seems like they are, as they have started doing in Dragonflight, then World of Warcraft will be really, really good in hopefully the next 3 expansions.
Yeah, and it seems as well the War Within doesn't feel like a massive, I guess, culture shock from what we're doing in Dragonflight. And something I was saying to you off air, Marty, was the fact that they've announced the World Soul Saga, which is 3 expansions. It probably means that the narrative can shift from Dragonflight to the War Within subtly. It takes like a little step towards the narrative that they want to get to at the last Titan. They don't have to take this massive, almost jarring shift in the storytelling. They can tell the story in Dragonflight, and we can move that on just slightly, just gently, to the War Within. And then we go through the War Within, and that narrative continues to move. Then we get to Midnight, and that narrative keeps moving until we get all the way around to the last Titan. And then that narrative works out. And then when you look at the narrative probably at the end of the last Titan to where we are now, it's like, okay, a lot has happened. But it has been, this progression that's built up, and it's flowed very nice. Whereas, like we've spoken about previous expansions, you defeat the big bad, then suddenly the narrative completely shifts to something completely different. And that's just jarring. And in the World of Warcraft where 30 years of storytelling, there's a lot there, and there's a lot that to still be uncovered. But sometimes moving around too much, it's a whole lot of everything and not really anything. And we know Blizzard can tell good stories, and maybe now with this, I suppose, new direction that they're taking with how they deliver content and expansions, perhaps we will see them flex their muscles at somebody like Final Fantasy XIV, for example, who, people praise the storyline in that game, and rightly so, because it's done so well. And if we even had, half of that sort of narrative power that Final Fantasy XIV is flexing, I think we are in a very good place.
Yeah. I mean, you pretty much summed everything up. I totally agree.
Terrible podcasting. I suppose something else that we haven't really mentioned on this is hero talents, which I don't think we know too much of as of recording, but it looks like it's going to be something like, I think it was it Morgan Day said something like it's reminiscent to the artifact weapon powers.
Yeah, from what I've been reading, I mean, it's still early days, so we don't know too much about all this, but from what I'm reading, it is also something that is only potentially within War Within. So it's something that they can switch out for the next expansion, perhaps. Maybe it's also an evergreen that continues on. They haven't really decided yet, but...
Yeah, they mentioned the word evergreen quite a lot, and the evergreen was going to be their focus, but they also said things like, but it might only be here for this expansion. So, I don't know, kind of wait and see, but hopefully, they're saying the words evergreen, and I think that's also something that's important, that when something comes along in an expansion, okay, some things only serve that, but it would be nice to carry things over.
Yeah, absolutely. But they did it this way because then they don't actually touch the talent trees which are in place right now, and they work and they're really, really good and people like them. So I guess it is to have some kind of progression forward.
Borrowed power?
It is technically some kind. If it's going away, then it is borrowed power. If it's going to stay, then it obviously isn't. So yeah, I mean, it's difficult to really say until we actually get some proper, these are the things, this is what's happening, this is what's going on. It was what we've seen so far is very minimal, since this is sort of just the initial reaction to what we've been seeing. We still have a few deep dives we can we still need to get through. So
I actually think like hero talents is a great idea. Like you say, don't mess with the talent points that we have right now. That works, and we still playing around with those as patches come out. But having this separate hero talent system where we can also customize our characters a bit more and have a few more choices, but also if that has to either change or go away in the next expansion or it gets expanded upon, I think it has more potential to be expanded upon, that you get more options potentially. And I think you're not suddenly messing up the talent system and then we have to like do some reset again, and it's just like the talent system I believe works now. Like we're in a great place with that.
The only thing that I'm is thinking about, wondering about, is probably how much will these hero talents change play styles, because depending on how much or how little, it does mean that they could experiment with new types of spec ideas and stuff like that as well to put in there potentially. Maybe we'll get some kind of gladiator spec back, perhaps. Who knows? I know that I would love that.
Yeah, or a healing mage. But we also know that we are going to unlock all these talents as well. So it's also the fact that we will have them all, I believe, by the time we get to level 80, because we're leveling up to level 80, something they didn't really lead with this time when announcing this. Usually that's the first thing. They're like, oh, level cap raised. But it's like, yeah, but we already leveled to 80 once. So I was actually hoping that maybe we weren't going to have to level and it was just going to be some maybe sidewards progression system. But okay, we're still leveling. I can live with that, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not a big surprise any longer that there will be a leveling experience, and the only thing is, there will be another level squish at some point. When will that be? Will we have to get all the way back up to 100? It's one of those things where, how will leveling be if you're a new character or you want to level an alt? But they haven't said anything about it, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens with that.
To finish off, Marty, one announcement as well that wasn't during the initial sort of reveal for the War Within was the Cross-Realm Guild and Cross-Realm Mythic are coming in the next expansion. Huge.
It is potentially huge, yeah. I mean, it's amazing that you don't have to server transfer all your characters when you want to join a different guild any longer, like I sometimes have done in the past. So that is amazing. I hope that will make it a little bit more, because sure, we can have Horde and Alliance in the same guild, but it does also some certain restrictions, and I hoping that they're slowly loosening up on those restrictions and making it an overall better experience. One of the issues right now, for instance, is if you are an Alliance that wants to join a Horde guild, you can't just search for them in the guild finder, for instance. You need to actually find them, talk to them, talk to people, get a proper invite. Whereas if you're on the same faction, you can, it's easy to just, if you know the guild, just be like, hey, I know this guild, I know the name, I can sign up for it, and then eventually someone will approve it, it's so easy to get into a guild where you already know people. So restrictions like that, I hope that they open that up a little bit more. But this is definitely cool news. It's good news, and even I didn't see the Mythic. Cross-Realm Mythic being opened up straight out of the bat. That is very cool. I'm also thinking of all the ways that the World First guilds will be abusing this. So
maybe abusing isn't the correct word there, but using it to their advantage for that.
Yeah, it's definitely a tool that they can use as well. So it's going to be really interesting. But it maybe also means that fanboys like me who's not on the correct server can help my team.
And maybe Europe will get back to winning ways on that. Time will tell. But what did you think of the expansion announcements? Are you excited for what's to come? Did it meet your expectations? Did you predict 3 expansions? If so, you're a genius. You can let us know in the places that you do that. That's all we had for you this time. I've been Tom. That's been Marty.
Still me.
And we've been talking WoW.
Thanks for tuning in, champion! Did you enjoy this episode of Talking WoW? If so, why not drop a review on your podcast catcher of choice, or leave us a comment. You can find Talking WoW on Twitter or YouTube over at Talking WoW. Hope to see you again soon!